Hi everybody, I'm artist Micah Goguen and I'm here today to show you some fun ways to integrate other products with gel press. Today we'll be exploring Ranger alcohol inks, Duralar Matte Film, and Amsterdam acrylic pens to get some fun and exciting summertime botanicals. We'll be showcasing how to blend and print and create some exciting depth and texture while using our favorite gel press. All right, so before we get into our gel plate goodness, we are going to start by prepping our base, and for the substrate, I'm going to be using the Duralar Matte Film. This is an archival film. It accepts ink, alcohol inks, wet media, etc. And it can really be great for drawing. It cleans and cuts easily, and it is a slightly opaque film, which I prefer, but you could also do this with the clear if you enjoy that. I think it's a great surface for alcohol inks, and we're going to be playing today with some of the Ranger inks, and I've got a variety of colors here. I've got the turquoise, which is called Stream. I've got the sunset orange. I've got a brown, which I can't identify because it's got a little cloak on it, and then I've got the wild plum. And so I'm just going to create a pattern, and I'm going to use the spirit of this image of daylilies. And so again, I'm not really focused on trying to create daylilies out of the alcohol ink, but I'm just using this color and imagery for the feeling of. And I'm going to be using a airbrush because I have it, and of course when you don't have any medium with it, it could just be used as a compressor, so it'll blow the ink around, right? But you could also use the canned compressed air, the kinds that you use to clean a keyboard if you want to blow around your alcohol inks. Another option is to keep either a spray bottle or a fine tip applicator of rubbing alcohol that you can use to help bloom and distribute, which I'll do that accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and just play with the colors and just create the feeling of daylilies. Going to get these guys going and start with my perimeter edges just by putting a couple of drops. And then I'm going to use some of the spray alcohol to bloom. Got to work kind of quickly with this. And then I'm going to use my airbrush to blow around. Okay, and once you feel like you have a background that you are happy with, just a pattern or design, again, getting the general feeling and the shape and the composition of the flowers, but it doesn't have to be exact, of course. Then we can move on to the second phase. I'm going to let this dry and clean up the mat here and put away the alcohol inks, and then I'll be back with my gel plate. Okay, so we're back, and I have allowed the alcohol ink to dry on this surface, the matte Duralar, and if you choose to, which I did, I sprayed it with a workable fixative. That was the Krylon workable fixative, and that just adheres any top layer. So sometimes, depending on the brands of inks, they tend to want to reactivate with some moisture. So just in case, any precautionary work, I just went ahead and sprayed it with some fixative, and now that that's dry, I'm just going to put it aside. Now what you're looking at here is the 8x10 gel plate, and there is an image underneath, right? So I've taken the photocopy that was the inspiration, and I've placed it underneath the gel plate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a series of slow drying acrylics. In this case, I'm using the Golden Opens, And I've got just a variety of colors that you saw that perhaps were in the image itself. So some yellows, some golds, I've even got a little bit of iridescent. I have a couple of opaques. This is the Titan Buff and the Titan Green Pale. And then Quinacridone Gold, Cadmium Yellow, and a little bit of Phthalo Green. And so I'm just going to set those aside here. And I got a little paper towel that I'm going to use to clean my brushes. I'm going to be using these long handle silver brushes because they hold a great deal of moisture, so they're really great for depositing and also wiping off the gel plate. They're also soft bristles, so they're really gentle on the plate, which is important to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to do a series of negative painting. So I want to just create a little bit of the tones with the buff and the green, maybe even add a little yellow, neutralize it with a little bit of the warm. And I'm just going to go in and work around my image, kind of creating an outline like we did when we were in grade school. And it doesn't have to be solid at this point, but the more paint that I use, it's a gentle balance because of course we know with pressure on the gel plate it tends to make the paint squish. So I try to do a little bit less and then if need be go back and add more. And I love all the whimsical brush strokes that I can get from also creating on the surface. And so I'm just really going to let that energy shine through. And right now I'm just focusing on a base coat, meaning that I am just trying to put a pretty solid layer of the green down. I'm not really worried about undulations of color like highlights of yellow or anything like that. Okay, and then you can do any kind of tweaking that you want. So I will add just a little bit of value to the background by going back in and putting some deeper tones of the phthalo, maybe some yellow. Okay, and then once I have that, I'm just going to set that aside, and I'm going to go back to my Duralar here, and you know, I can see, this is the back side of it, but I can see kind of the pattern that most emerges. It won't be exact, but I can see where the flowers kind of line up the most. And then I'm just going to choose to go directly down. I'm placing my fingers so that I have a little bit of registration for an idea, and then I'm just going directly down, and then I'm just going to smooth my hand and make sure that the plate's making full contact. Get any air bubbles out that tend to show up. I can see a couple here, so I'm just going to massage those out. Make sure that the plate has full contact. I might even lift up a little bit to let those air bubbles escape and then flow it back out. And just give it a really good rub. And then when I pull it off, I can see an imprint of an embellishment of the flowers. So we have another layer of depth. So now I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back in and accentuate it with some markers. Okay, so now for the final, we're going to be using these Amsterdam acrylic pens. These are just small tipped, both black and white. And we're going to be using our image, again, as an inspiration, but not the exact, because I really want to flow with what is happening on the substrate itself. And so I'm going to really try and make flowers out of what is here rather than copy, but I do have, you know, the image so that I can use it for inspiration. So I'm going to start with my white pen, and I'm just going to tip out some lighter places, just kind of in a sketchy quality, just to kind of encapsulate some of the petals so that I can better see some shapes. And it's basically just like one of those tests where you see if you can see images, or maybe if you ever looked at clouds, you know, what's the image in the cloud? Then I'm going to do the same thing with the black, and I'm just going to create a little bit more shaping just to call attention to the flowers. Again, not everything, just helping out some of the values where it might be a little bit more confusing. Maybe create a couple of leaf structures here, just to continue the idea. And then the cool thing about this is that if you would like to go back in with just a little bit of touches with the paint, maybe I want to brighten up some of the centers of these flowers, I can just take a little bit of my yellow and just accentuate when and if needed. Again, not taking away from the effects of the alcohol ink or the gel plate, but just adding a little bit of something extra. Okay, and there we have our tropical print on the matte Duralar, and you can even put it in a window for extra luminosity, or you could frame it without glass so that it has a natural suspension, but you have all the fun effects of the alcohol inks, the gel press, and a little bit of drawing and embellishment. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll hope to see you soon.